Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Whom shall I send? And who will go for us?" And I said, "Here am I. Send me."
The trail of the 3rd Army and the 19th Tactical Air Command and the 8th Air Force is marked by more than 40,000 white crosses. 40,000 dead Americans.
We were young and soldiers called to dedicate our lives in the name of God and country. Do what's just, boys. Go do what's right. A hot band of brothers waiting on our chance to add one more page unto the victory dance. Here am I, Lord, send me, send me. Victory lies in the spirit of the lives of the men who died for me.
This is Michael Broderick, Marine Corps veteran, actor, and former Gallant Few board member. You're listening to The New American Veteran, produced by Gallant Few in partnership with the Heroes Media Group. Now, here's Carl Monger.
One thing I've learned is that the secret to this whole thing is that there's no secret. You got to put in the work, you got to be aware, you got to make steps forward, and things tend to work out really well for you when you own this.
To create something and to build something, you have to first envision it. You have to envision what you're going to create and then take action on that.
The transition can be tricky, as anybody in here can attest to. So for those of you that are going through it now or are on the cusp of going through it, just know you're not alone in any way, shape, or form.
Don't be too prideful to where you can't reach out. Seek help.
Let's just get to work and let's solve problems. Let's be a problem solver. Be serious about what you're doing. Be serious about those steps and what stage you're in, and handle it.
Live a very good life. Take care of your life, take care of your health, take care of yourself, and then everything will kind of fall into place.
You have to own your own mission. You have to have your own passion.
For me, it's been about how do I keep my sense of purpose. But if you can focus on that and get yourself right, you're going to be so much better for the people around you, and you're going to be 100% deserving of this and so much more.
T-Bird 7, runway 01 right, wind 360.11, cleared for takeoff.
T-Bird 7, copies, cleared for takeoff, 01 right, switching.
I'd say Gallant Few means to me, it's been a staple in my transition in the way that it's given me connections and kind of given me a new purpose to find basically my passion, to honor my service as a veteran, as my service to other veterans, and as a public servant. And he wanted to do that as a part of the Hometown Heroes program for the United States Air Force Thunderbirds. This opportunity came to me because I'm out there, helping other veterans and serving my community.
and he's chasing through the clouds there. And I'm like, all right, try to get through that spot over there. Absolutely no problem still. We were joking, you should have picked flying the airplanes instead of jumping out of it.
Hey, this is Carl Monger with Gallant Fuse, the New American Veteran. It's my privilege today to bring Nicholas Moore onto the show. Nicholas is a 2nd Ranger Battalion veteran who has recently written a book that's about to be released that's called Run to the Sound of the Guns. Nick, welcome to the New American Veteran.
Thanks, Carl, for having me.
So give me a little brief background of your military service.
I enlisted in 1999 and went through all the prerequisite stuff, and then was lucky enough to get asked which battalion I wanted to go to, and so I spent my entire career at 2nd Ranger Battalion until November of 2013 when I was medically retired.
And so you're a pre-9/11 guy. So where were you on September 11th?
September 11th, I was on the second day of Ranger School.
Now, tell me about that.
Well, that was kind of one of those moments we're standing outside waiting to go do land navigation. And, it's well past the time hack, and we're kind of going, okay, well, what's going on? Ranger doesn't like to just stand around, and that's usually when we get in trouble for doing, Ranger stuff. Then the RIs come out of the hooch, and they're they're like, hey, somebody just crashed a plane into the World Trade Center. Does anybody have any family that works there? And we're like, what? Wait, what? No. And they come back out, a few minutes later when the second plane hits, and they ask the question again, and they said, we're going to war because somebody's just attacked us with this. And we're like, ha ha ha, funny, false motivation, the whole thing. And then time goes on, and then they ask about, does anybody have parents that work at the Pentagon? And it was kind of struck home there for a minute, because one of the kids raised his hand and said, yeah, my dad works there. And they said, you need to come inside and call him. And I mean, for anybody that knows anything about Ranger School, this is you don't just get to make random phone calls until the end of the course or the end of the phase. And that the fact that they're bringing him inside to make a phone call to see if his dad's alive, I think that finally struck a chord that they're not making this up, and that this is real. And they knew that we didn't really believe them, so they, rolled the TV on the TV cart outside on the deck, and told a couple of guys to actually go take a look, and so that they could confirm that what they're telling us is real. And it was like, oh, but in retrospect, I mean, in hindsight, it gave us all the motivation. We didn't need false motivation, or we had a drive. Now it was all right. We have a purpose, and I can't be stuck here for the proverbial 6 months in Ranger School. I got to get back. I got to get back, because I know that we're going to go.
It's interesting. I was in Ranger School during Grenada, so we were sitting in a chalk waiting to get it on a Black Hawk in mountain phase, and we'd gone through all the safety briefings and everything else, and we're just sitting there waiting. And the RI looks at us kind of smugly, and he says, "So, does anybody want to know what's going on in the world?" And we said, "Yeah, sure." And he said, well, first off, how many of you are second lieutenants? And, they never ask that question, right? Because you don't talk rank. And so a couple of us held up our hands, and they said, well, you better pay attention, because second lieutenants are dying in Grenada. And, they're going to need you when you get out of Ranger School. So it was, talk about an attention grabbing moment, and what brought it right to reality, what you're getting ready to do.
Yeah, it was. They did the same thing again when 375 jumped on Kandahar, Objective Rhino. We had just finished mountains, and we were getting piers and all that stuff. And they rolled the TV out again, and they said, "Hey, you guys need to come watch this." And the first bat guys and the second bat guys, we've already, the colonel of the regimental commander's already said who's going, so we knew it wasn't either of our two battalions. So we're kind of laughing, and the guys from 375 are crying. They got tears. They're like, we missed all of it. And, it became the question of, why are you guys laughing? It's like, we haven't missed anything. It's not our turn yet.
amazing shared experience from a different time frame, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's the one fear that everybody had prior to 9/11 was that you would go to Ranger School and you would be stuck there like the guys, you know, when you were there for Grenada and the guys that were there when they went to Panama. And you know, who would have thought this thing would be going on 17 years later? I mean,
right.
You know, historically speaking, Grenada lasted for 6 weeks. Panama was a 6 week operation, and I think the longest after that was Mogadishu was what, 8 weeks? 8 weeks, 90 days, something like that. It wasn't. I mean, it wasn't huge.
Short enough that you'd miss it.
Right.
Well, so the book. So you medically retired in 2013.
Yeah, from injuries I received in 2011.
And that, if you don't mind here, I want to read just a little bit out of the prologue of your book because I've got it up on my screen. October 8, 2011, Tangi, is that right? Tangi or Tangi? However you say that valley, Wardak Province, Afghanistan. The 3-round burst from an AK inside the compound slams hard into me, punches me back, spins me around, thumps me off balance like a marionette manipulated by invisible strings. My helmet's night vision device is knocked out, its comforting green hue extinguished. I shouldn't have stretched my leg across the gate opening the way I just did. My bell is rung and everything moves in slow motion. That's a pretty attention-grabbing opening to the book. I mean, it kind of indicates that's a fascinating first paragraph. I'm excited to get a chance, and I scanned the book ahead of time, but I'm excited to get a chance to actually get in depth and read it all. How does a Ranger decide he's going to put this down on paper and write a book? Most everybody thinks we speak in one-syllable words.
Yeah, I kind of toyed with the idea. Actually, the whole thing came about. I was down in Texas. I got asked. Tim Abel asked me if I would be a guest on Grateful Nation on his show on Outdoor Channel, and I was like, oh, absolutely. You know, fellow Ranger wants to go hunt some deer. I bring my son along. You know, when we're off camera, hanging out in the evenings, waiting for the next day. You know, Tim's like, well, tell me a little bit about what you've done. And so I said, well, you know, we did 2002, did the initial invasion because that's still, you know, early 2002 was still the invasion because we're still rolling forces out of staging bases and putting boots on the ground in country. And, you know, establishing the American footprint, you know, that rolls through. And then 2003, we invade Iraq, participate in the Jessica Lynch rescue. And, you know, things start going along. You know, 2005 rolls around. I participate in the rescue and recovery of Marcus Luttrell in the crash for Source Turbine 33 call sign. You know, running and gunning in Iraq, chasing, you know, terror cells and all that stuff. And then the extortion crash in 2011, we were boots on the ground prior to the crash, and SEALs were coming into, you know, about 5K away to start a whole nother target, and you know, the helicopter gets shot down, and so we end up, you know, aborting our mission and you know, basically move to the crash to secure and recover it. So I'm just telling Tim all this stuff, and he's like, "Man, you need to write a book." And I was like, yeah, that's probably not going to happen because, you know, Ranger doesn't want to put a whole ton of effort into something that's probably never going to get printed. And so, you know, about a couple years go by, and Tim hits me up on a text. He's like, hey, I got a friend who's an author. I was telling him a little bit about you, and he wants to, you know, is it okay if I give him your number? And I said, sure. And so Mir hits me up, and he's like, hey, I think you really have a great story here that needs to be shared, and I'm almost positive we can get this published if you want to tell it. And I said, well, let's see what we can do. And so that was early 2015. So then you know, he puts all the pieces together in the literary world and throws the pitch out, and I think within 4 hours somebody bought on it. They were like, yeah, let's do this. And I was like, wow, okay, I guess we're writing a book.
So talk about that process a little bit. What as you went through, did you just sit down and just start typing on a laptop, or did you kind of put an outline together?
I had kind of kept some rough notes over the years, and, you know, the Army Green notebooks and stuff like that. Nothing that was classified, but just kind of, you know, memorable things that we had done over the years that would, just mostly so that I could remember what I had done because we had been doing so much. Like running in Iraq, I mean, you were averaging, the 90-day operation cycle, you're averaging over 100 missions. So just trying to put things together so that I could, later in life, I could have notes so that I could tell my kids all the things that I had done or along that lines. It wasn't ever so I could write a book. It was just more so that I could keep my memories in chronological order because things always start to bleed together. So I had those, and I used that, and I started, writing some things out, and then we started putting the chapters together, and that took, I was probably a 6 or 8 months to put it all together, and then we had to send it to DoD for review, and then they held on to it for another 9 months, and so we missed our original publication date, which was supposed to have been September last year.
As you went through that process and you're remembering stories and you're looking at notes and events that happened, did that bring up anything? Did you have trouble now that you're remembering things in depth? Did that create any issues?
I mean, I started, when we were all the way through the whole thing the first time, you start getting angry because, well, at least I did. It's, the good and the bad, I laughed, had a good time remembering all the good stuff, but, along with the good stuff, you have to remember all the bad stuff too. And it's, brings back those frustrations and those moments of anger. And, but I think once I got through and I finally told everything to somebody that wasn't in my family, it kind of lifted a big, that big invisible weight that sits on all of us. And so I think it's been, I guess, cathartic, if you will.
There's a Vietnam veteran here that is a friend of mine that a couple of years ago, I asked him if he would tell his story about Vietnam to a group. And he had never done that before. And he was a gunship helicopter pilot, and he saw and did some things that he didn't want to remember. And he lost his crew chief. And through the process of him telling that story, he had, like I said, he had never done it before. He was very nervous about doing it. He got emotional the first time he did it. But then it was like it opened up something inside of him, and it made him much more open to talk about things that he had suppressed for a long period of time. So I think it is cathartic, like you said, to be able to get your story out, whether you're telling it to someone that's outside of your family. And the fact that you can talk about it within your family is also important to be able to do that. But to be able to write it down, capture it, write it down, it's almost like you're letting it go some so that it makes it easier long-term to process.
Yeah. And my wife has really been there for me the whole time through my whole career. And she never let me not share anything. She made me share all the things, because she followed the news to make sure that things were going okay. And so when the big events were happening, and Marcus Luttrell crash, and that whole thing in 2005, and then the crash again in 2011. I mean, she knew where I was, and and based on Navy SEALs crashing and things like that, she knew that I was involved in it, probably. And so she never let me not talk about it. She made me talk about it. So I think, her forcing the subject along over the years has really helped too.
Can you talk a little bit about your transition out, that you got injured and then ultimately medically retired? Some of the guys that I've spoken with, that is a really difficult thing for them to deal with, being medically selected out of the unit that they've been a part of for so long. Can you talk a little about how that process went for you?
Yeah, I was, I got shot and, got taken away from being a platoon sergeant so that I could do rehabilitation and all the things that I needed to do for myself. So I moved over and was running the S2 shop for a few months, and then some issues happened with a platoon sergeant and Alpha Company, and so things kind of got moved around, and so they needed an E7, and the sergeant major at the time asked me if I was good to go, that we needed a sniper platoon sergeant and somebody to deploy on this next deployment. And I was like, yeah, I gave the Ranger answer of yes, I am absolutely ready to go. which I wasn't. But you know, you can't tell a Ranger no. So I deployed and doing an L&O job. I got an infection in my leg where I'd been shot, and spent a couple of weeks down in Kandahar getting medication to take the infection out. And that was my last deployment, 2012, and I'm running around on the, you know, back at home training snipers, and I'm limping around really bad, and I'm thinking I'm doing a good job of hiding what's wrong with me. And my company commander and first sergeant had just pulled up to the range to, you know, check on training and see what we were up to, and they called me on it, and so they said, you need to go see the doc when we get home. So I went down and talked to the battalion surgeon. He said, you know, we're going to get you in to see a neurologist. And so I go to the appointment, and, you know, he does a few tests, and he just blatantly asked me, do you want to walk when you're 40? And I said, well, yeah. He said, well, you need to stop now. And it was very eye-opening at that point. You know, it's either I continue to fight to do what I've always done and, you know, continue in the Ranger way of, you know, mission first, unit first. And it was, you know, okay, well, now I need to start thinking about me. And so I went into the med board process, which only lasted for mine was only 8 months. So I went to the doctor. It was like early February 2013, and by, you know, September, as the battalion's deploying back from their deployment in 2013, I'm on 30 days notice that I'm out of the Army. And so that was kind of it.
It's difficult to be there in that environment, knowing everybody else is going back to war and you're not.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely hard. And then you have to explain this to people that you've known for years, that are, you know, the sergeant major, the incoming sergeant major, commanders and platoon sergeants and first sergeants, guys that are expecting you to just, you know, continue to be there like they are. And it's like, that's not going to happen anymore.
So after you get out, sorry, I'm getting a little bit of feedback there. When you, after you separated and you're now out, you walk away from the Army, can you talk a little bit about that process? And one of the things I'm interested in is if you have any advice or guidance, your own after action review, lessons learned from your transition that another Ranger or somebody that's leaving the military would find useful in their transition.
I don't know. When I got out, for me, it was kind of a good timing, I guess, if you will. I'm a huge outdoors guy. I love to hunt and all that stuff. So I got out, and it was right in the middle of duck hunting season. So I kind of, you know, used that as the buffer of, you know, a way to still get out of the house and kind of do my own thing for a little bit, and just kind of, you know, I guess, if you will, de-stress, unwind, kind of, I guess, process what had just happened. I'm no longer a part of, you know, what I was. What does it mean to, you know, what is being a veteran now? What's that mean for me? What am I going to do to support my family? All these kind of things. And then I'm still working through the VA process to, you know, enroll in the VA system, and all those kind of things. So I guess the big thing is you go from such a high speed, you know, high tempo life to, it's like throwing the car in neutral on the freeway and then just coasting to a stop. It's like, what am I supposed to do now? I haven't really thought this far ahead. It was always, you know, what's the next mission? What's the next objective? What's the next training operation? And where are we going on the next deployment? You know, all these things, and then it's taken away from you, and you're like, oh, I don't know. It's kind of like, I guess, a midlife crisis but I'm only like 31. So hunting season worked, and then I didn't really start to, I guess, like panic, if you will, until the spring of 2014. It was like, what am I gonna do? And so, you know, I continued to go through the VA system and test out some issues that I was having, or things that I was trying to say I didn't have. My wife's like, no, you need to get checked for this, and you need to get checked for that, and you have problems here. And it's like, okay, so the VA retired me at I have 90% disability, but I have the unemployable because I have a TBI and some short-term memory issues that are keeping me from actually being a little bit more productive than what I am.
But one of the things you said I want to touch on there, your wife forced you to get some things checked out that you didn't want to, or maybe you either didn't want to face or didn't recognize it yourself.
Yeah, she was seeing some issues that I was having that I didn't think were a big deal, and she was, looking at me objectively and telling me that I had, memory problems and I wasn't remembering things, correctly, or I was forgetting a lot of things. Like, I really started to notice it when I would go to the grocery store to get some things, and I'd roll into the parking lot and I'd park the truck, and then it's like I'd have to call her and say, what am I getting at the store again? I have no idea. I remember like one thing, and she'd rattle off like 8 or 10 things, and it became one of these, just text it to me. And it wasn't because I, absentmindedly on a business phone call, is I couldn't remember them. So
yeah, so that's critical. It's important. It's important that you have somebody as an outside resource to look at you and say, now get this checked. So I'm glad that that happened for you. And again, what I want to do is one of those things that we emphasize with this interview, the process that we do is your lessons learned can be something that can help somebody else. So somebody else that's out there, think about it's normal and natural for us to not want to admit that we have an issue with anything,
yeah,
whether
well,
it's memory or anything else.
We're tough guys, and we don't want to admit that there's a problem. But it takes a strong man to admit that he has a problem, and it's not weak to ask for help. I mean, if you look at it, from a combat standpoint, a guy's not going to stay pinned down by a machine gun and not ask for help from somebody else that can maneuver on the situation. So why are we, as young veterans, why are we sitting here suffering alone? I mean, we don't have the same political stigma against what we're doing versus the guys 40 years ago, 50 years ago in Vietnam. It's completely different culture, and there's so many people out there willing to help us, and it's just a matter of getting over yourself to ask for help. And that's been for me, that was the hardest thing to admit, was that I needed somebody to talk to that's maybe it's not my wife for some things, because there are just some things that are easier to say to another vet, somebody that understands. And so
that's great advice. Let's go back to the book for a minute. When is the book coming out? Where can people get it?
The book's it's on pre-sale from anybody that can do, it's Amazon's got it on pre-sale. Google Books has it on pre-sale. Walmart has it on pre-sale. It's basically anywhere. You can pre-sale it from Barnes & Noble. And it'll actually be released in bookstores on November 13th of this year, 2018. So just in, 2.5 months, 2 months.
Do you have any events planned where you're going to be signing books?
Right now, we're just staying local here to the area to start things off. I got like one event I think is planned for early December at the Cabela's here in Lacey. And then I think my wife's kind of running that with the marketing guys right now. She's really jumped in on that. So
keep on that, because I want to make sure we get the word out to all of our network and our audience to go and buy autographed copies of your book.
Okay. There's Premier Collectibles will be selling already pre-signed, pre-autographed copies. They'll be available November 13th from their website. And so I have to get some Sharpies here shortly, and then they're going to send me the books to sign them all in my garage, and then I'll ship them off to Premier Collectibles, and then they'll be available for pre-sale or for sale as well after the release date.
Outstanding. What have I not asked you that I need to ask you? What anything else that you'd like to cover or talk about?
I guess like with the book, it's like we finally get it all finished and written, and then we've got to go through the endorsements process and send it out. And I guess like the biggest thing that I had was during the whole writing process of the book was I told Mir when we were writing it, I was like, I don't want to put a ton of profanity in this because I got kids that are going to read it. And, that's probably my biggest drawback against reading people's books is that they want to write the book the way that we talked. And I find it to be, I don't want to offend anybody, but I find it to be ignorance when we have to write like that. If we have to use all that, then we probably shouldn't be writing the book anyway. So we kind of kicked that around a little bit. And I think maybe there's 10 curse words in the whole book. And it was things that were quoted by other people or we used somebody else's quote, in the book. And other than that, we I guess in big people words, we actually used the English language for more than, I guess I should say we actually just used the English language and to convey our point across without actually using the profanity, because I didn't want people to go, wow, your dad talks like a sailor, if you will. So then we go through that and just we start finding out, trying to find people who would endorse it or write the foreword for the book or all that stuff. And Mir kept saying, we need to get General McChrystal to write the foreword for the book, and we need to get his endorsement on the book. And I was like, oh, why we got to go there? Because he's still, and I always look at General McChrystal. He's always, he's the commander. He had just finished being the regimental commander when I arrived at the battalion, and then he's working the JSOC piece, and then he's the ISAF commander in Afghanistan. It's like, and he's a super intelligent guy. It's like, I don't want him to tear this apart and tell me that I'm an idiot. And so if anybody knows anything about General McChrystal, the guy only sleeps like 4 hours a day. He's a machine. So we sent it to him, and the next day he's throwing comments back, and I was like, oh, and it was all good stuff. I was like, wow, I guess if, we can get his thumbs up on this, I guess we actually did what we set out to do. So that was, that kind of put me at ease, I guess, if you will. And then, all the endorsements in the book. I mean, Carl, you endorsed it. And then all the other guys that are in there, Max Mullinger, Mir's got some British, Rhodesian guys that endorsed it, and everybody came back with the same opinion. So I guess we did it right.
That's a great book, and I can't wait to get my own hard copy. And
that's coming soon.
I also want to say thank you at the back, because you have a place in there if somebody has read the book and it's reawakened some things or caused them to think about some things that are maybe causing them some sleepless night or making them want to go back to drink or something like that. There's a way they can reach out. So I appreciate you including that in the tail end of the book.
Absolutely. I guess if we could have done a whole book for just in veterans groups, that'd be a good seller too, at least in the veterans community.
Well, I've wrote a book of my own called Common Sense Transition. I'll get a copy of it off to you. I don't know if you have if you've seen that yet.
I think I got a link to it. I think Tim sent me something. I actually haven't. I don't, with my daughter, I don't really have a ton of time to read, and then I got a few dogs of my own running around downstairs. So
don't go online and buy it. I'll send you a copy. I'll send you some.
Okay.
Copy. Yeah, and then when you get time, having a 6-year-old running around is that's a handful.
Yeah, and then so I've spent a lot of my time, doing that, and then my brother's getting ready to wrap his career up here in the next 9 or 10 months. So
twin brother, right?
Yeah, and so he's a ROTC instructor finishing up at KU up in Kansas. So I'm kind of trying to help smooth his transition and answer a bunch of questions that he's got and kind of point him in the right direction. And, you know, so he doesn't feel like I did, and he can, you know, have a little bit smoother transition.
It's all about sharing the lessons learned. They don't need to learn it the hard way. You already been through it. He doesn't need to do it the hard way.
No. So I get with the book, it was a good experience. I don't know, knowing what I know now, as far as like all the processes in the book, I don't know if I would do it again, because it's too much like being an English major. I was telling my wife the other night, I was like, I don't even know if I want to read it in hardback, because I'm tired of reading about myself and I just want to throw up. But everybody that's taken a look at it so far has really enjoyed it. So I've enjoyed the process, and I guess the whole thing behind actually doing the book was, you know, I'm not the greatest thing since sliced bread, but I got to be a part of the greatest team. I mean, I will put any Ranger platoon against any other special operations unit, and you know, if I had my pick to be on any one of those teams, I'm picking the Ranger team, and it's not because I was a member. I've worked with all of them, and it's just, you can't find better camaraderie or guys that are motivated to the same mission purpose. So I tried to convey that through the book, that it's not about me. It was all about, you know, the teams that I got to be involved in. And I don't mean like, you know, it's the platoons and the strike forces and all the conglomeration of all the efforts that you know, we put through, and that, you know, we talk in there about being part of the greatest single transition of a military unit in, you know, modern warfare. And it wasn't even about transforming ourselves. The whole point of what we were doing was to stay relevant to the fight at hand. I mean, most of us, it was, okay, what's the enemy doing and what are they throwing at us now that was different from 6 months ago when we left, to, okay, how do we take the lessons learned from the guys on the ground now and transform it and continue to morph, and stay relevant to the fight. And, you know, after 17 years, you know, instead of being a special operations support force with, you know, the stuff that you guys were doing in, you know, Grenada and Panama, you guys were there as the, you know, basically the, you know, the main muscle, but you weren't really the main mission. Is that now, you know, we're standing shoulder to shoulder and running the same target sets as the rest of the guys that are in the community and doing just as good of a job.
What's amazing is, back from my era, one operation we would plan out for a month and then rehearse it first in daylight and then at night, and then, you know, we'd spend hours and hours and hours going through just to do one exercise. And you guys were doing that equivalent of an exercise 10 times in a night, because you'd find something on a target that would identify something else, and then you'd have to put together another mission and go. And
right, and even to start the whole process for the night, you know, it depends on where you are. You know, Iraq is, you know, just based on assets and distance, and, you know, it's a 3-hour planning process, and then we're out the door. And you know, that was the way it was when I was a private. When we got in, you know, we'd plan and rehearse all these training missions, and, you know, you'd have a whole day dedicated to just, you know, walkthrough of what we're going to do and all these things. And now we have all these SOPs that everybody has memorized, and everything's in place, and the operational tempo is just putting it. So, you know, plan it, brief it, dress, go, execute it, come back. And then, you know, in Iraq, it was 20 minutes to plan it, drive to it, execute it, next target, next target, next target, next target, next target, you know, 3 or 4 times. And, you know, got all these bad guys wrapped up, and, hey, we need to come back because we got to unload the truck. We can't fit anybody else in there. Well, we got one more for you. We need you to get before you come back. And it's like, oh. So then it's like starting to go through. You have to kind of start selecting who's coming and who's not, and who's getting kicked off the truck that's already on the truck. And it was fun. It was fun. It was fast paced. It was high octane, up tempo. Because it's no fun to go into somebody else's country and just sit when you could be doing something. So,
Well, it's amazing what you and your team, what the Ranger Regiment has accomplished, and you talked about the transformation of a force and during combat in such a short period of time. That's one of the things. And my final thought on this is one of the things that makes it so hard on men that have been assigned there is to be a part of that, to be a part of history, to be a part of making a difference, to being told by the VA that you're too broken to have a job or to try to sell telephones or whatever it is that somebody does post-military, right? It's
Right.
how do you go from that one existence to the other existence? It's extremely difficult to do
Yeah,
that.
you go from
It's
running
possible.
around with your hair on fire at 100 miles an hour for 90 to 120 days straight to pump the brakes, and now I'm just sitting, 30 feet from the finish line, and I can't get there.
Yeah, it's a tough position to be in. But rediscovering purpose, writing a book certainly is a huge purpose, but rediscovering purpose is incredibly important to healing. I want to give a big shout out to Tim Abel for getting the process started with you. What he's done with Grateful Nation is phenomenal. He's a current Gallant Few board member. He's a former chairman of the board for Gallant Few, a good friend, and it's a phenomenal guy. And also a big shout out to Mir for helping you write the book, for helping you get it published. I've known Mir for a long time as well. So you got a good partner there.
I do. I couldn't have asked for a better group of guys to get tied in with, and I appreciate you for having me on, Carl, and for the help that you gave me when I was first getting out. Because Tim told me to get in touch with you right when I was first getting out, when I was still trying to, fight the process to not be as broken as I actually am. Because nobody likes to admit that they're actually as messed up as they are, and so
Right.
I had issues with that, and I've come to terms with it, and I spend my days filling in the 14 years I guess I missed raising with my son, and I get to spend all that time with and I guess do it right with my daughter this time. So I'm enjoying myself with that process.
Well, Nick, hey, thanks for being on the New American Veteran. Thanks for your service to the country. More importantly, thanks for my freedom. One of my favorite things to tell a veteran is not thanks for your service, because that makes me feel weird when somebody says it to me. But when I say thank you for my freedom, they're like, oh, damn straight. So thanks for my freedom.
You're welcome, and thanks for setting the ways for us to follow and all the things that you
call me old now?
And Tim,
you call me old?
No. We're all old. Go be a Ranger for 4 years and you're beat up.
It's like dog years, 1 = 7.
Yeah, something like that. It's close.
All right, Nick. Hey, thank you. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you being on the show, and best of luck with the book.
All right. Thanks, Carl.
They teach you a lot in the service. They teach you how to stand straight and fire your rifle. They teach you respect and survival. They teach you how to take a life and how to give your own. What they don't teach you is what happens when you come home. There are over 2 million people in the U.S. Armed Forces. For some, coming home is the hardest part. As a veteran, you are not alone. Reach out, call a battle buddy, and take the Spartan Pledge today. For more information, visit us on the web at descendantsofsparta.com.
Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send? And who will go for us? And I said, Here am I. Send me.
Thanks to Kenny Thomas for permission to use his song Send Me, and to Michael Broderick for the intro. Thank you, Army Ranger veteran, actor, and Gallant Few board member Tim Abel for sending us out with Isaiah 6:8, and thanks to the Jim O'Farrell Band for the X-Fill song Nowhere. The New American Veteran is a Gallant Few Inc. production. All work is original or used by permission. All rights reserved. Visit www.gallantfew.org for more information or to request to appear on the show.